Good morning, my students. This is the first video for our class, the Introduction to Education, and this is the review of this for Progress Test 1. I decided to utilize this video to facilitate the learning process that we need to adapt to the change. Everyone knows that at the moment we are having this COVID-19 or coronavirus 19 outbreak, so that we need to change the mode from the class meeting to more kind of safer way to learn, that is through online learning. So instead of meeting in the class, we are going to have this video, and through this video hopefully you will have the opportunity to rehearse or repeat the materials over and over again. So without further ado, I would like to review the Progress Test 1, and as what we have accomplished last week, there are 3 areas of concern for Progress Test 1, that is the heroic narratives, and then followed by human learning, and the third one is about school culture. Well, basically there is nothing new from my elaboration here, because basically this is just to remind you what we have been discussing in the class. Now let's go ahead with our first part of the 3 components, the heroic narratives. Under the first part, you are expected to address 4 areas of concerns. The first one is certainly about pedagogy berkepedulian, and then the second one is my own narrative, and the third one is Segomubeng, and the fourth one is Romo van Lith. And I will certainly help you with a particular elaboration with all this one. Now, with regards to the first part, that's the pedagogy berkepedulian, there are 2 chapters included, and the first chapter addresses the heroines. The key figures include Somalimam, Jenny, and Rose Mapendo, and the questions that you need to really capture and answer will be what commonalities do major characters demonstrate, and the second one is what values do I draw from those heroines. So you need to certainly review what Somalimam and Jenny and Rose Mapendo had done, and you need to identify the similarities or commonalities of those major characters raised by Isabel Allende. And this is very important for you to really address those 4 characters within your own way of learning. So this is of great importance that you identify their values with regards to your own life experiences. And I need to emphasize this more, the significance of drawing value, because education is very complex, and like Romo Triarkoro has frequently told us, education is a matter of fundamental actions. We do things, we talk about things, and we maintain good relationships. All those good things are by nature educational. So education is a complex issue, and it is not cognitive knowledge itself, but it is a set of complex issues done in actions, done in speeches, done in how we relate to each other. So make sure that you draw a lot of connections, you develop your critical thinking skills on that. Now, let's address the second chapter of Pedagogy Berkepedulian. You need to address the stories from Romo Mangun, Cyrilus Harinowo, Hani Handoko, and also Bilal's story. And just like what you are expected to develop from the first chapter, you also are expected to identify shared commonalities or shared similarities of all those figures in relation to leadership and education. And certainly, I also encourage you to develop your critical thinking skills. Namely, you are trying to identify the values and how to draw those values with your own life experiences. That's all with regards to the concept of stories and narratives for our education drawn from the first book. And the second issue is certainly from the story of my own. I wrote my own narrative, and I informed major transformations on the part of me. Previously, I thought that I was like a perfectionist person, but I ended up changing the way I view the students. I view myself, and I changed myself, and then I became more embracing towards differences. And I hope that you will not only you would not retell only what my transformation is all about, but drawing from my experiences, drawing from my transformations, drawing from my changes, you will eventually draw your own connections, and you will learn how to assess your own life. You become more reflective. So this is the second goal. Then the reflection becomes very significant, and you know your strengths and limitations, and well, hopefully you know what to do to improve yourself. That's basically the second part of the heroic narratives. Now let's move on to the story of Sukomupang. So, like what I explained in the class earlier, there are three questions that are raised for the third part. The first question is, what competencies did junior high students need to make to make such a video? Then I've also informed that competencies cover three things. They are attitude, knowledge, and skills. And you need to elaborate that one. And you need to practice explaining things. And the second part, in addition to the cognitive capabilities or the knowledge part, then we also draw from the Jesuit tradition the concept of conscience. So you need to elaborate what conscience did the video attempt to reveal. And this is the real challenge for each of you, that you will try to problematize, you try to analyze, and you need to argue with yourself and with your friends about what kinds of conscience that you can draw from the video. And the last one is discuss kinds of compassion demonstrated in the video. So, while competencies focus on the ability to think, and conscious is about the definition of what is good, what is bad, and about the moral values that we need to follow. But in compassion, it is a bit different. Compassion focuses more on the real action. Well, you have the conscience when you know what is good and what is bad. You have a great conscience when you know that taking somebody else's money is not good. So this is the conscience. But compassion is something more active. It is the real action that you do. So you need to eventually explain what is meant by compassion from the video. So that's all from the concept of Skomubang, and hopefully you will review the video again and then try to problematize. You need to analyze, and then you need to argue with your friends, and you need to discuss. So once again, there is no dichotomy, right or wrong answer. What is needed is to take the risk, to practice and practice and practice. I think this is the most significant part of learning. So let's go ahead with the fourth part of the heroic narratives, that's about Romo van Lith. So you need to review your notes, and also from the documentary from Metro TV, Melawan Lupa. The major question that you need to answer from the documentary movie is, what contributions did Father Van Lith make to Indonesian education? And like what we have discussed in the class, then there are 4 areas of concerns related to his own students in the class, in the community, and on culture, on Javanese culture. That's the second one, and on politics. And the fourth one is certainly on the concept of evangelization, on Catholicism. So basically, when you learn to review the heroic narratives, you need to address all those things. So this is the next part of our review, and this is about human learning. So we have discussed a lot about the concept of human learning, and especially from the founder of Sanatana Dharma, and you know it well. He is Romo Triarkara, a philosopher, and he writes a lot about the concept of three C's: competence, conscience, and compassion, and more certainly about the three types of philosophies: rationalism, irrationalism, and existentialism. Rationalism refers to the school of thought that humans have all the capabilities to rely on their own cognitions, thinking, and awareness. And it is through such thinking process or cognitive ability then humans are successful at developing technologies, like in health, like in genetic engineering to produce great results for rice production or other commodities like cotton and sugar canes, all those modified product. So patently human beings are not that simple. Another way of thinking about the capabilities of humans is that humans are by nature irrational. We don't have all those capacities because we are not rational. We don't have the capability to know what life after death is all about, right? And we are certainly subconscious of what made us today. So we are irrational by nature. So irrationalism is the opposite of rationalism. Rama Triarkara attempts to bridge between these two opposing perspectives, between two dichotomies. And he proposed the concept of existentialism. So existentialism attempts to fully realize that humans have some capabilities on the one hand, but in the same time, we also acknowledge that humans are not able to know all things. So instead of being confused in rationalism versus irrationalism, then existentialism proposes the idea that let's identify what we can do. Let's solve our problems. Of course, to the best of our knowledge. So this is the concept of existentialism. So we try to address something based on our capability to solve our problems. So we know two concepts. The first one is problem. So problem is something that we can solve, right? And there is another one, mystère or mysteries, those that we cannot solve the problems. And we know our limitations. So that's the concept of rationalism and irrationalism. And the bridge between these two, that's called existentialism. So education by nature in Ramo Triarkara's perspective is to engage in our existence in our existentia. So that's the topic. When we finished discussing a little bit about philosophy, then let's try to focus a little bit more from a kind of anthropology's perspective. So I've posted a short video on the differences between how human babies need more time to get educated in comparison to other creatures. So humans are very unique, and we are certainly primates. We are no different from our brothers and sisters like chimpanzees or like monkeys, But certainly for millions of years, we have evolved. A case in point, for 1.5 million years, humans were good at managing fires. We made use fires to cook our food, and when we consumed food, the cooked food, we have more calories, and because we do not eat raw food, the digestion system changed. Our intestines become very delicate, but at the same time, we also develop the brain capability. So, for 1.5 million years, humans have become more skillful, and the capacity of the brain becomes much bigger and bigger. And in order to become mature humans, children certainly need more time. But make sure that you go to the video and you need to identify the reasons why do human babies need more time. I do not need to repeat all the details here. It's your turn to really go to the video. And we also address already concepts of learning from biological perspectives. And make sure that you also review 4 summaries about human learning from the neuroscience. So neuroscience or biology attempts to see how hormones work in our brain. Studies in neuroscience tell us that learning is hormonal by nature. When we are happy, then there will be 4 types of hormones, like let's call it EDSO, endorphin, dopamine, and serotonin and oxytocin. All those 4 kinds of hormones will get burned that we become happy. In comparison then, when we are not happy, there will be a lot of cortisol in our brain. The cortisol level, the higher the cortisol level in our brain, then less capable we are for learning. Because when the cortisol is there, we are very nervous and we are ready to fight, and the adrenaline will increase and we will not be able to think clearly, but certainly we are ready to fight. So those are the examples of how hormones really influence the way humans learn. But from different angles, then we understand also from the neuroscience, there are 4 areas of major issues here, that we are subconscious beings and we know nothing about our own motives, expectations, and what drive us, etc. And if we do not know who we are, and that happens also to other people, we eventually do not know what drives other people, because this is the limitations. But fortunately, we are united by mirror neurons. So this is the empathy part. So one of the indicators for being empathic is from the primates, like chimpanzees and human beings alike. When we see somebody else yawn, then we tend to get stimulated to yawn as well. That's the example of the existence of mirror neurons. You will not hurt other people because you will feel the same uneasy feelings. When you see other people laugh or they are happy, then we are triggered to share the same feeling as well. That's the concept of mirror neurons. And the last point is, this is very significant. You need to be aware of this. Learning capacity among humans is unlimited. Studies done on those suffered from brain damage, like strokes or like hemorrhage or gagal otak, and then those who happen to be losing their capability to speak, and then the brain is scanned, and then the scanning result shows that a new path or new paths were created. And when the victims of stroke started to develop the speaking capability, then a new path is created, and then the practice is increased, and then there is a phenomena called myelinization. The bigger and the more complete route in the path. So among neural part to the other neural components. So I think this is very optimistic, because learning among human beings is bottomless. When you learn something new and you do it over and over again, and you have the self-confidence to do it, and you enjoy it, and you start communicating about something good about that, well, learning becomes easier for you, and you become eventually an expert in that area. So that's the rule. The last thing, I think this is very important for you, and this is the independent learning. The previous discussions focus more on reviewing what we have discussed in the class, and my speech in this video is hopefully useful for you, so that you can review all those things. But with regards to learning from positive psychology, well, that's what is your independent learning will be all about. you will compare and contrast the two psychologists. The first one is Carol Dweck, and the second one is Angela Lee Duckworth. Both are writers and researchers in the area of positive psychology. So learning can be understood from different angles. From philosophy, that's from example in point is from Motriarkara. And from anthropology, this is the second part, how humans are different from animals. And from biology, it's from neuroscience that I have addressed earlier. And the last one is from positive psychology. The Carol Dweck talks about power of yet. And then Angela Lee Duckworth talks about grit. This is the basic ingredients that seems to share the commonalities or similarities to each other. So now we are ending up the second part about human learning from 4 angles. First one is philosophy, second one is anthropology, and the third one is from biology, and the fourth is from psychology. So I hope that you really engage yourself even when we do not have the meeting today, but you have the opportunity to rehearse, to come back with this video. And now we are heading to the final part, that's the school culture. And we have also addressed this one from the previous class. And 4 questions have been identified. The first one is, what are shared commonalities of 4 major corporations, Zappos, Costco, and Starbucks, and IBM? And Deal and Peterson, 2016, have good reasons to propose these 4 corporations as examples. So you need to identify the similarities among those 4 corporations. And the second question is related to the problem. Thiel and Peterson argue that curriculum standardization, increased testing, and research-based methods have created poor results. And I want you to explain why. And the book has explained about it, and what you need to do is to think and try to relate. And the third question is related to the functions and impact of culture in schooling. You have directly the opportunity to see the elaborations of the function and impacts of the culture in schooling on the text. And the last one is Bowman and Deal identified 4 lenses or frames that people rely on to size up and act and respond to situations. And what are those 4 frames? So all those 4 questions are very important for you to master, so that you will get a better understanding about the significance of education in social context, and especially in school culture. So that's concludes our first video, that is the review of our class before the